I'm moving tough.
Perfect. Well, John, we were talking about this last week, and we talked about for a variety of reasons. Why is it that somebody would like one team over the other? And one of the things that we really emphasized, and you were not here on Thursday, you were busy flying to the Super Bowl. I was with Mark, and I said, here's why I think Philadelphia is going to win. And I think they win by a pretty decent margin. And the reason is, well, they got the best offensive line in football, in my opinion, and the best defensive line in football, my opinion. So when you've got those two things, John, and then that's not it. You still got Saquon. You still got Hurts. You still got AJ. You still got tight ends, Goddard and these guys. And then you look at the secondary of what they've got and some of the linebackers that are playing there as well. Howie Roseman, he deserves all the credit in the world for what they've done, how they've built that franchise, John. They've got like four guys on the defensive side from the school and the University of Georgia that are absolute beasts, right? So those are all the reasons why, I leaned more and more the more I looked at this. And we talked about this yesterday on our sports show here, The Huddle in Minnesota. And we had those Super Bowl guys on there, and they understand it as well as anybody, of course, because they're two big guys in the trenches on the offensive line. One of them was a center guard. The other guy was a tackle. So it is what really, I think, stands out for me, John, is how easy this one really was. I mean, you could look at Kansas City and say, well, they're going to three-peat, and here's why. They snuck their way through a lot of games. They had a great record. Don't get me wrong. Great football team. But when you really watched the game, there was somebody out there that was dominating the game, and there was somebody else without. How about the fact that they were able to get 6 sacks, John, on Patrick Mahomes? That doesn't happen very often. 2 interceptions in the game. That doesn't happen very often. As a matter of fact, you look at the interceptions that Patrick Mahomes now has thrown in Super Bowls, and he's been in a few, is starting to kind of get higher and higher. So everywhere you look, you say, well, what about this defensive line? I look at them, John. They had Josh Sweat. We were talking about this right before. 6'5", 270 pounds. The guy looks like he has no waist at all and just built to play football. And the rest of the D-line is 300-plus pound guys that are unbelievable as well. So everywhere you looked, to me, it made a lot of sense that Philly was going to be the team. And I'm kind of curious, did you start leaning more and more that way, or how did you see it playing out? But it played out pretty close to what we were talking about yesterday on the show.
Yeah, and on your Odyssey show, Pete, the Sports Huddle, we'll be putting out a tweet about that, folks, because Pete did call it, and pretty much right on. The fact, Pete, that they have speed too. Yeah. I know Kansas City's got Worthy, I think his name is, Pete. Yeah. Obviously, one of the fastest people in football. The Cheetah Hill down there at Miami, but he's got more things on his mind than football usually. But Cooper DeJean, Pete, a 4.15. Yeah, the kid at Iowa with a full house came out to watch him just do his thing and as they said, elite speed beyond elite speed. And if you can get a step like that, as quick as he is, that's how he got that pick 6. Yep. I mean, he is a smart player and he can just do it all. But the speed, Pete, it goes from Jalen Hurts to Saquon to Cooper DeJean, and like you said, that it was like a jailbreak on Mahomes. He's never seen that before, Pete, where his offensive line could not stop them. And they were doing it most of the time, Pete, almost exclusively with a 4-man rush.
John, I was just going to say that. They did not call one blitz in the game because they didn't have to. The 4 guys up front, they had no problem getting past those guys. I mean, they were in his face on every play. You can only imagine how angry Travis Kelce was. They couldn't get him the ball. Patrick couldn't find him because he had big, huge D linemen in his face on every passing play and hitting him pretty decently on most of those plays as well.
He got hit a lot.
And, and you get 6 sacks. Those aren't so bad either. I mean, he was literally, it was a jailbreak. He was running for his life. And that really was, I think the game changer and that offensive line for Philly, John, the way they opened up and they did the things that they did, they couldn't run the ball. I'm the first to say. The one thing Kansas City did, they did a great job of stopping the running game, except for Hurts and except for the fact that Hurts doesn't have to run the ball. He can. He did pretty well, actually, but he can throw the ball pretty damn well, and we saw a lot of that. I mean, he was throwing the ball all over the place and literally dropping dimes everywhere. I mean, it was literally one of the better games of a quarterback I've seen in a really long time. It was really impressive to watch him. All right, John, how about this next one? Who next year, because you might think the way I am, who in the AFC next year will be in the Super Bowl? Will it be Kansas City? Or do we change over and say, you know what, it's finally time again? It's Baltimore, or it's Buffalo, or it's the Texans, or it's Cincinnati if they can put together a defense. I mean, maybe they go to the big fella, Myles over there at Cleveland, John, and go, hey, how about you come over here and be on the other side of Hendrickson or whatever? And you got the defense that all of a sudden is kind of a dominating defense, I would think. So I'm not sure who it is right now, but I don't know that it's going to be Kansas City next year. I really, they had a great year. They have great coaching. We all know that. And I'm not trying to flush them down the toilet, but I just don't know, John. I think Baltimore, maybe, a pretty big maybe, or Buffalo finally gets over the hump. What about you?
Well, several things. Number one, when I was down there at the Super Bowl, folks, I said it was easily 2-1 or 3-1 Eagles fans over Chiefs fans. Everywhere I went, everywhere. And I think, Pete, that it probably slips by some people because it's not something you'd think about. But if you've won it 2 years in a row, a lot of those same fans aren't going to come out as big for the third time. Yeah, there are people that want to see a three-peat and all that. But there are a lot of regular folks that can't afford to keep going over and over again to the Super Bowl. So to see the numbers fade from the Chiefs side and the numbers up on the Philly side, that's not the difference maker. But what might be, Pete, is the other part of that equation, which is you're drafting last.
Yeah.
I mean, you're basically getting a second-round pick when you're in the Super Bowl 3 years in a row. You're getting a second-round pick because the number one, the worst team gets the number one pick, worst team by record. So if you're the best team, if you win the Super Bowl, well, you're the best. You're drafting last, which means pretty much you're getting a second-rounder. So unless they can trade, Pete, or unless they really somehow manage themselves better in the free agent market and so forth, they don't, number one, they don't have a lot of cap room, Kansas City. Number two, you're talking about the offensive line they need to shake that up a little bit, maybe a lot. And you're going to lose Travis Kelce. He's probably going to retire. I mean, he's getting a bit long in the tooth now, Pete, to be a tier one tight end. Yeah. And so they've got a lot of things they got to invest in if you're Kansas City. So I'm thinking, Pete, that the teams most likely to be able to get there are Baltimore and the Bills. Those would be my two picks. You're taking a long shot with Cincy. Yeah. And if I wanted to take a long shot, I'd say San Diego. The old San Diego. Now I know they're the LA Chargers, but I still call them San Diego.
Yeah, with Harbaugh. I like that. I like that pick a lot. I would say this. Whoever is lucky enough to get Myles Garrett is going to get over to the next hump and be the team that goes to the Super Bowl, because that guy is by far, I think, the best defensive end in football right now, and slash tackle, because he sometimes can play inside as well. But John, he's been stuck at Cleveland. He wants out. He wants a Super Bowl. He doesn't want to just keep making the great money he's making. He wants a Super Bowl. So he's looking for a trade. He'll get a trade maybe. Maybe he goes to Detroit. Maybe he goes to whoever can afford to be able to pick him up. But whoever gets him, he's a bit of a game changer on defense. Is he Lawrence Taylor? Almost, but he's not. But he's damn close. I mean, he changes a defense in a hurry. So whoever does get him, that'll be my pick as the AFC team if he stays there.
And what did Jalen Hurts say, Pete? Money's great. championships are better.
Yep.
At both those
play,
guys,
man.
Yeah. At those guys' level, Pete, I guarantee, from a Ray Lewis type to basically, if you ask Josh Allen, okay, with all the money you got now, Josh, what do you think? He'd say, I'd give it all up for a Super Bowl right now.
Yeah, I think so.
Now, I'm not saying he'd give everything he's ever worked for up. I'm saying he would probably play for free to be able to get that player that puts him over the top, Pete, because they are just one or two players away. And you're exactly right. If the Bills got Myles Garrett, it's game over in the AFC, in my opinion.
Well, and I'll finish with this. The one guy who did that and did it time and time again, Tom Brady. Tom Brady used to have his contract shifted around to make sure they can get a Randy Moss or they can get whoever it is that they think they need. He was willing to make that sacrifice, John. Now, we all know he made a hell of a lot of money. Let's be honest. But he still did take less money because he wanted to win Super Bowls. And some of these guys talk. So we'll see. And I'm not saying Jalen Hurts or anybody like that, but they talk, some of these guys. Let's see if they actually talk enough to actually say, you know what, I'll take that cut.
You know who did that also, Pete? Michael Jordan.
Right there, two goats, right?
Right
two
there.
Goats.
You got the two goats, Jordan and Brady. They both did it. Let's see which one of these guys is willing to go to that next level.